Great to have you listening in today. As with previous seasons, it is my hope that the guests and their stories that I get to share with you this season can provide you with the tools and or insights that you need to know that you can make it through whatever is happening for you now. And not only that, that you can have the life you want in whatever way you want that to look like. So let's get to it. I'm your host, Helen Morris, and this is The Beautiful Side of Grief. When you get married, you are thinking of the foreverness of it all. A life with your partner by your side, someone you can confide in, who has your back, exciting times ahead, a home, a family, the feeling that this is what life is all about. For some, though, this dream is cut short. Jan Zwinck will never forget the moment that changed her life. In 2011, her husband was walking home from a bachelor party when he was attacked, robbed, and killed. Jan instantly became a young widow, left to raise their 2-year-old daughter alone. Overcome with grief and anxiety over the loss, Jan chose her own unique path to heal. She packed 4 suitcases and moved with her daughter to a tiny island in the Caribbean where she knew no one. The years she spent on the island gave Jan the time to process the loss and rebuild her own strength and find the courage to move forward. She is a podcast host, co-founder of the Widow Squad online community, widow advocate, and author. And in 2017, she remarried. A year later, they welcomed another wonderful daughter into their family. So now they are enjoying a fun and crazy life in South Louisiana as a family of 4. And that's how Jen describes it. The intention I'm setting for this episode is to discover how you can thrive as a widow through conscious grieving to create the life you want, knowing that out of the worst can come the best, or at least some pretty good things. Please know that I'm sending you loads of love, hope, and happiness wherever you happen to be on your journey right now. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you, Jen, to the beautiful side of grief.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're welcome. So, a widow at the age of 35. I bet that wasn't in your life plan.
No, never in a million years did I think my life would have played out the way that it did.
Before we get into that, though, why don't we start the show off by you describing your favorite memory that you have of your first husband? And let's just set the tone, the beautiful tone of what he meant to you.
So my favorite memories are about us going out on our boat. We bought this beautiful home on the water right after we graduated from school, and we were starting our lives together. And one of the reasons why he moved to Louisiana was because he was such a passionate fisherman, and he loved to go fishing every minute of the day if he could. And he decided, we agreed we were going to move to Louisiana, and we bought this beautiful home on the water. And just a few months after we bought the home, we bought the boat because it was always his dream. And that was his happy place, was to be out on the boat and taking rides with me and then later with our daughter and our puppy dog. And he just loved to go out fishing, take us fishing. And anytime I picture that boat or just memories of that boat, it's just his smile. That's all I see is the smile, because that was his happy place. And mine too, because of his smile, right? Like
yeah, because I can see your beautiful smile just lighting up even larger as you were just describing that. And that is so beautiful. Yeah. Let's now have a chat about what it was like for you, because there you are trucking along happily thinking everything is rainbows and happiness. And then just like that, overnight, in an instant, your life changes. So describe for us what that was like for you.
Well, just like you said, we were living our lives. We were young and focused on career, but also focused on starting our family. We had our 2-year-old daughter. We were talking about having a second baby. So I felt like our lives were just beginning. It really was. We were happy. We were so happy and content, and we just enjoyed life. We just had a great life. And he was invited to this bachelor party. It was a really good friend of ours. So this was just a regular Saturday in October 2011. We had both gone to work that day. But the days leading up to that night, he kept telling me, he said, I don't really want to go, because he was kind of a homebody and he just loved to stay home with his girls, right? Like he was not a party guy. So I was the one, I said, go have a good time. You're going to have a great time. All the guys are going to be there. So the plan was for him to go to this bachelor party on Saturday night, and he was going to spend the night out and then come back the next morning to watch the football game that was starting at noon. So I knew he was going to be out late, and I told him before he left, I said, just text me when you get back to the hotel room, let me know that you're okay. And this place that he was going it's about an hour away, but he got in the car, we did a quick kiss goodbye. He said, do I look okay? And I said, yeah, you look great. Have fun. Mwah, bye. That kind of thing. So he rushed out the door, didn't want to be late. And he called me right when he got in the car. So we had a long conversation. It was about a 45-minute conversation while he was driving down there. And I'm so glad that we got to talk. So then, he got there, we said goodbye, and I went to sleep. I had Claire, with me in the bed, because she was only 2 and he was staying out. So I think I woke up, something kind of woke me up at about 4:30, and I looked at my phone and he hadn't texted or anything yet. And so I just figured the guys are still out. They're still partying. No big deal. Maybe he just drank too much and he forgot or whatever. But the next morning, it got to be around 9 o'clock. I still hadn't heard anything. And then 10 o'clock, and then 11 o'clock. And then the football game started at noon, and he still wasn't home. And I had been texting him, and then I ended up calling his friend, and I said, hey, I'm like, where are you guys? Did you go out to breakfast, or what's going on? And he said, well, we haven't seen him since last night. And I said, okay. He's like, let me go check in the room. I'll go see if he went back to the hotel room. Maybe he's just sleeping or something. So he went over there, and the room was nothing was touched in the room. He hadn't gone back to the room. There was no, signs of him going back. So this friend said, okay, Jen, I want you to call your parents, have them watch Claire. I need you to come downtown. I need you to, I'm going to go to the police. And in my head just started spinning, because I was like, okay, what is happening? What are you saying? And so I did what he said. I called my dad. My dad came with me to go downtown. I grabbed a couple of pictures of Brent to show the police. My mom was watching the baby. And so by the time I got down there, it must have been around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. The police were already there. I was talking to them. Everybody was trying to retrace steps. They were talking to the bartenders that were at the bar. They were talking to the bouncers and trying to get video footage, because there's a lot of cameras set up in the French Quarter on the streets, so they can, they can see. So they were trying to get that footage, and this was hours. So hours were going by, and then I guess it must have been around 7 or 8 o'clock at night, we finally were able to trace his phone and track his phone to a location. And the phone was probably 3 or 4 miles from where he last was seen. And it was located in a junkyard that was outside of the French Quarter. So there was a lot of conversation with the police and my dad and our friends, and everybody wants to rush over to the junkyard to go see if he's in there. So we go over to the junkyard. Everybody drove over there, and it's pitch dark. It's Sunday night. So by this time, it's like 9 o'clock at night. And it's barbed wire fence, like all along the top. And then like Rottweilers and pit bull dogs just like barking underneath. So we couldn't get in there because they couldn't get in touch with the owner. But they ended up calling the fire department. So the fire department came out and they put up a big ladder to go with a spotlight so that they could climb up there and then shine the light down and kind of see if they could see anything. It was huge. It was a huge junkyard. And they just kept telling me, they said, okay, we're going to shut off the lights and we want you to call the number and we'll see if we can see it lighting up in the junkyard.
Yes.
So I just kept doing that. And I think we did that for an hour. And then the fire department started to leave and some of the other police people started to leave. And I was just looking around like, where's everybody going?
Yes.
It's 10 o'clock at night or whatever, but one of the detectives came up to me and he just said, okay, ma'am, we just need you to go home and try and get some sleep and just let us do our job. And I was like, what did he just say to me?
Exactly.
Because I'm like, I'm not leaving here because I don't have my husband. Where's my husband? Why is everybody leaving? I couldn't believe it. And then I'm standing there with my dad and he's like, we should just go. So it was close to midnight and I didn't know what else to do. So we left. We went back to my parents' house. And when we got there, I mean, of course I wasn't going to sleep. I felt like my skin was inside out. I'm like, I was so amped up, just anxiety and panic. So we got back to the house and my little girl was sleeping in one of the guest bedrooms. And so I just went to crawl into bed with her, and my mom had set up a little nightlight, and the nightlight was casting a shadow up against the wall across the room from me. But I was sitting in the bed with her and I just kept saying, I said, Brent, give me a sign, give me a sign, give me a sign, give me a sign. And I was panicking, right? So it was just over and over. Yeah. I said, please give me a sign that you're okay. I need to know. And that shadow was his silhouette. It was his silhouette on the wall. Wow. Full body silhouette. And I looked at it and then I said, nope. I'm like, that's not it. I need a different sign. Give me a different sign. Tell me. I need another sign. Yeah. And then I looked back over at it and I just stared at it for the longest time. And I was like, that's it. I knew, I think even up until that point, like my brain knew what was happening, but my heart was not ready to face it or accept it. And then I saw that and I said, okay, that's it. That's it. He's gone. The next morning, around 8 o'clock, we got a call from the coroner's office to come down to identify him. And they said, we don't want to believe this is your husband, but we are, pretty sure it is your husband. They had a picture of him upside down on the table. It was a big, long conference table. And so I sat down and he flipped it over and he showed me his picture and then he flipped it right back over. And I said, no, I want to see it again. And he said, no, you don't want to see that again. And he didn't show it to me. I wanted to see
Oh,
it, but he
really?
didn't show it to me again. And I mean, I asked if he was there. I said, is he here? Like, I just needed to see. I just
Mm,
needed,
mm.
again, it was like, I just couldn't accept what was happening. I needed to see. And that picture wasn't even enough for me. It wasn't even, I even said the stupidest thing to this man. I said, no, we're going to the pumpkin patch today. I said, this isn't happening. Like, we're going to carve pumpkins today. That was our
Yeah.
plan. So
It's not
it was
stupid at all. No, that's how your
just
brain works, isn't it? It can't quickly adjust to the fact that he might not be there with you. All you know is what you've known for all those years previously and the patterns. So to try and get your head around what may have happened, oh my
could
gosh.
not could not wrap my head around it. So what had happened was he was at the bar. Brent was at the bar with the guys and left at about 4:30 when I was checking my phone.
Yep.
So he had left and he was tired. He just wanted to go back to the hotel room
Yeah.
because, like I said, he was not a party guy. He was like, I'm done, I'm done. He did that to the guys and then he left. But he left by himself. And when he walked out, he was followed by someone. He took a turn. He took a left turn. He was supposed to take a right turn to go to the
Oh,
hotel. He took a left. And when he did, it was a very dark side street that he turned on. And he was a block, not even a block, a half a block away from the bar where all the guys were. And this person attacked him. They hit him on the head. They took his wallet. They took his phone. And he was left on the sidewalk. And a person walking by just a few minutes later found him. He was barely breathing, and they called the ambulance. But by the time the paramedics got there, they told me that he was already gone at that point. So it was
it's it's
sort of,
it's interesting that the police didn't make the connection, with somebody having been picked up that had been assaulted and
I did find
taken.
out later because I did call
Yeah.
hospitals and they are not supposed to give you any information. It needed to be, I think it needed to be like, there's a process
Officially.
to it. And
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
officially. And I didn't know that because I was calling hospitals to try, I said, is there, he's 6'2", he's got brown hair,
Yeah.
blue eyes. I'm like, is there anybody that came in? I was,
Yeah.
but they're not allowed, even if he is there and they know it, they're not allowed to say anything. They can't do that.
Yeah. I did the
I didn't
same.
know that,
So,
but
yeah.
so
Gosh,
it
but you
had to
would have
run through
thought
the
that would have
process
been
of
part of their process. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I guess you've asked yourself 1,000,000,000 questions in between. And I guess one of the toughest ones would have been, why did I encourage him to go when he didn't
oh
want to
God,
go?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
the asking why did it happen? Yeah.
I asked myself and I beat myself up over that. Like, why couldn't I just be that that nagging wife that is like, no, you can't go, stay home. No, I'm the total opposite. I was like, go, have fun.
Yeah. 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 And he did
Yeah.
have fun. He probably had the best night with his mates. And so on some level, that's a really, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just look for the positives. So,
Right.
yeah. So for me, that would have been a positive. At least he had a good night beforehand, like,
Right.
oh gosh. Yeah. Oh my
So,
goodness me. So what I'm interested in now is that you took yourself and your wee girl away from everything and everyone you knew to an island where you knew no one. Oh my
yes.
gosh, that had to be both tough and lonely. Why did you do that?
So it was about 2 weeks after the funeral. We were, I mean, I was still just in a daze and walking around like a zombie, not
Mm-hmm.
knowing up from down. And it was actually, I think it was the day before Halloween. So Claire and I went to go and have lunch with my mom. She was out running errands and she said, "Meet me at the McDonald's. I have
Mm-hmm.
to go run and do this. What are you doing today?" I said, "Fine, I'll meet you there. We'll go grab some lunch and then we'll go run some errands together." So we go to this McDonald's in this very quiet part of this really small town where nothing bad ever happens. But we went to have lunch and Claire was still potty training because she was 2. So we got our food, we sat down in a booth, and my mom took Claire to the bathroom. She had to go. And so I was just sitting there in a daze, eating my French fries. And behind the counter, I could hear voices getting louder, and the workers were starting to talk louder. And then I heard one of them say, "Oh, he's coming over here." And I still didn't know what was happening. But right outside of the window to the right where I was sitting, this police car comes screeching up right outside. The policeman jumps out. He has a gun in his hand, runs
Oh.
into the men's bathroom, and then runs back out, has the gun still up, jumps in the car, and then screeches away. And I'm just sitting there, just eating my French fries, not
Yeah.
knowing what is happening. And then I heard the worker people say that the bank across the street was just robbed and that the person was running over to go hide in the McDonald's or around the McDonald's.
Oh.
I don't know. But my mom comes walking out with Claire from the bathroom and she says, "Guess who just went to the potty?" She was so
Yeah.
excited that Claire went to the bathroom and didn't go in her diaper. Anyway, so I had a panic attack in the McDonald's. I told my mom what happened and I said, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe right now." Like there was all of this violence that was just caving in and
Yeah.
suffocating me. I said, "I have no idea what is happening because this is sleepy town where we are
Mm-hmm.
outside of the city. And this is happening to me again, like 2 weeks later. I said, "I can't take this anymore. I can't take this." My mom had to grab my shoulders and take me outside and help me breathe because I was having a panic attack. I said, "I have to go. I have to get out of here. I have to do something. I can't be here." So I went home and I immediately bought tickets for Claire and I to go to Turks and Caicos. That's the little island. This little
Yeah.
island, Providenciales, is that was our vacation spot. So Brent and
Oh, I
I,
was just going to
before
say, did you know it? Yeah.
Claire, before she was even born, that's where we used to go on vacation. We've been with her there several times too, but we would go like 2 or 3 times a year. It's a beautiful, quiet, peaceful place. It's not a big party place or anything like that. We don't
Yeah.
like that, but it was just a beautiful, quiet place to be. And I said, "I need to go there." So I went. I booked it for Thanksgiving for 10 days because I said, there is no way I'm going to be here for holidays because I can't sit here and pretend that
Yes.
everything is all happy and wonderful and let's have a great
Yeah.
normal Thanksgiving. I didn't want to be there for that. So I said, I'm gonna go down there for a week and a half and just clear my head a little bit. And my plan was to go with just Claire and I. And then at the last minute, a really dear friend of mine, she said, "I'm going to go with you. I don't want you to go on this trip alone. I'll come with you and I'll watch Claire. If you want to just go walk on the beach
Yeah.
or if you want to sit by the pool, I don't care. If you want to go journal down the beach, I'll play with her." And so she was amazing. She stayed for a week. But by the third day that I was there, I told her, I said, I feel like I want to live here. Like, I feel like I just want to be here
Yeah.
because of the feeling that I get when I'm here. I feel peace. I feel calm. I feel close to him because that was our place,
Mm,
you know?
yeah.
And she said, okay. She's like, well, let's see if we can make this happen. Now, she is a super type A engineer. She, because I couldn't think about numbers. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't put 1+1 right now on a piece of paper. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But she was really good with, she had it all figured out. She was like, okay, well, if you can find a place for this amount of money, you can do this for a year. And I said, okay,
Wow.
let's do it. Let's do it. And I did. I found a place like 3 days later, and I was able to go and see this. And it was a place that I was familiar with, the area that it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I went ahead and I signed the lease. And I hadn't really talked to anybody else about it. I didn't. She was the only one. I didn't tell my parents what I was doing, but everything in me was like, you need to be here and you need to get this figured out. Also, because I was thrown into being a single parent, and
Yes.
I felt like I was missing time with Claire. I felt like I was so wrapped up in taking care of everything when you lose a person and everything that involves. The business side of grief is what we talk about, right? Like there's just the logistical stuff of getting your house, bills, banks, all of it. So I was tackling all of that with my widow brain, and I felt like I had missed like a month of Claire's life. I said, I have got to figure this out, trying to be a mom now on my own. And so that was my plan. The peace and the quiet and the time with her and the time to heal, and not knowing anybody else there did not matter one bit to me. I said, I don't care. I don't care.
Because the thing is that grief strips away everything, doesn't it? It takes you back to your core, and all the things that you thought mattered beforehand suddenly don't matter anymore. And you just, I don't know about you, but it sounds like you were being led from your heart, what your heart needed, what your body needed, because your brain couldn't think anyway. So you were purely in that. And those are the things that you've got to listen to, aren't they? Because that's what's going to lead you on that journey to healing, I believe, anyway. Yeah.
Yes.
So how long did you stay on the island for?
So the year went by and I was not ready to come back. And then another year went by and I was not ready to come back. But we ended up staying for almost 3 years. We were there.
And that's not long in the scheme of things, not when you're grieving to that depth, I don't think. So how did you discover your path of healing? What did that look like for you? What were the things that you were finding were working for you, and what wasn't working?
I guess I can think of 3 things that just really jump out to me. I had the most amazing group of widows that my dear friend at the funeral, actually, she came up to me and she said, you need to talk to my friend Cherie. She lost her husband 2 years ago. I know she meets with some other widows. And I was like, please give me her number. I need to speak to her immediately. Immediately. And here I was in a house full of 200 people, my dear close friends, all of his friends. And I know you probably know this, but I just felt like nobody knows how this feels. Nobody knows. They're trying to love me and support me right now, but I need to talk to somebody who has been through this. And so I got on the phone with her. So my friend gave me her number, and it was I think it was the next day. It was like the day after the funeral. And she said, so I talked to this girl, Cherie, who I didn't know at all, but she talked to me for like 2 hours on the phone. And then she said, look, we're getting together this Friday at this other lady's house. And she said, we meet like once a month. If you can go. She said, I can't go to that meeting, but I'll let them know that you're going. So I went. I said, I don't know any of these people, but they're all widows. So it doesn't even matter. So I went to her house, showed up crying from the second I got out of the car. I was crying up to the door, knocked on the door, just bawling, crying. And she answered it. And there's candles everywhere. And there's ladies in the kitchen drinking wine. And I was like, oh, thank God.
So my people.
My people.
Yeah.
It was such a weight lifted off of me. I can't even explain. And so those were my girls, and they still are. This is years later. Yes. And of course we've added to the group, unfortunately, through all of these years. But that group of ladies, they were just my angels. And I don't know what I would do without them. In fact, I remember I called one of them in the airport after I had signed that lease, and I was coming home from Turks and Caicos, and I had made the decision that I was going. I called her and I said, I think I'm gonna move down there, and I didn't even hardly know her for like a couple weeks, but I needed to talk to somebody just to see, what, I don't know, just to help me through it, right? To help me through it.
I think the beauty of when you connect with your angels, it's like you can say whatever you like, or you cannot say anything at all.
Right.
And the thing is that they get it. They get wherever you're at that particular moment. And they can recognize the dumping, like when you just need to get stuff off your chest and it makes no sense and it's not rational, and you don't want people to make sense of it. You just want to get it out. And so they just there and saying, would you like another glass of wine? that sort of thing. And I just think there's a beauty in that, in being able to be exactly as you need to be.
Yeah, I know. And I'm so grateful that I had that. And so that was huge for me. Also, just being out in nature, being outside, walking. I had this place on the beach, and I would go walk on the beach, and miles and miles and miles of walking, just connecting with nature and being outside and being in the sun, It was very healing for me. That was huge.
Actually, I would say that would have been one of my greatest healers, was just getting out and just walking in nature and noticing every single day was different. It didn't even matter if I went exactly the same route. It was just each day was something different to notice. And the thing is that I didn't have to think. I could think if I wanted to think, but I didn't have to. And and to this day, if I feel I'm getting a little bit in a funk, I'll go, you need to go for a walk, girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's still my go-to.
And with Claire, and the walking that we did, and the time that we spent together, as I was doing that, I was realizing that it was part of my healing process too, was focusing on being in the moment. Because when I would start to think about the future is when I would really start to feel my anxiety ramping up. And I would be terrified of thoughts of the future, and so fearful of what that looked like, or what it could possibly look like. I couldn't even go there. And then I would start to think about the past and being pulled back to that. And I knew I couldn't have that life again. And so
Yes.
I really learned, not by anyone telling me, but just by living it and experiencing it, that living in the moment and being in the moment is what felt the best to me. It kept me grounded, it kept me safe. It really kept the anxiety at bay. And going on those walks with Claire, and all we were
Oh,
doing was walking, collecting seashells on the beach,
yes.
or making a little sand castle, just like being in the moment with her. One, it was
Yes.
time with her. And then two, it was being just very grounded in that moment so that my other thoughts didn't start to spiral into the past or the future. And that was
Yes.
extremely helpful for me.
So let's also talk, because I think this is wrapped into that as well. It's the wanting to know why something has happened, why that person was taken from you, why it had to be at that event. There's a million whys. How did you deal with those?
That was the worst.
Yes.
It was the worst. I asked that question, a million times.
Yeah.
Why?
And you don't
Why?
get an answer, do you?
You don't get an answer. You don't. And this whole time I have been trying to, find my why, right? Like I say, find your why, find a purpose. And I try to live by that, because I'm not going to know the answer to why until after I am greeted on the other side. And maybe I'll get an answer then. Maybe not. I don't know. But
Well, it's interesting. I'm going to share this with you because I always set myself up for my interviews. I'm very spiritual, so I just sort of make sure everything's aligned and, the best possible space and like that. And I pulled a healing card. And actually, a couple came out because I'm hopeless at shuffling. So I ended up with, three or four instead of just the one. But one
uh,
of them was all about inner work. And let me read to you what this card said. It's very short. And it said, and and I'm going to talk about God, but God can represent whoever you want that higher being to represent. So God brings me ideal situations for my inner healing. As I become aware of my weaknesses, I turn them into strengths. I direct my thoughts toward the light and see the positive side of every stage of my life. Darkness turns into courage. Thus, I get stronger.
uh,
And
wow.
you relate to that. You get that, don't you? Because
Oh,
as I
wow.
was researching you,
Uh,
this those words came up,
I got
and
chills.
yes, because we don't always need to understand the why, but we then are forced into situations where we need to look at what's important for us, what's
Mhm.
important for our future, what's important right here and now. And from those can come great learnings because I know my life completely changed. I stepped away from my career and I just got that to a point where it was on the precipice of going to some really good places. But I thought, no, that's not important anymore, you
I
know?
know.
And it's like you
Yes.
say, the time you spent just walking, making sandcastles, spending time with your daughter. Wow, you've actually got this amazing foundation with your daughter that is just going to just be your blessing in so, so many ways. And I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
I know. I feel like that time that we had together, it was the best decision that I I've ever made. I know that. And it did not make a lot of sense to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Logically, it does not make sense for me to move to a place where I did not know a single person with my 2-year-old.
Yeah.
but
The only
it
person it
was,
had to make sense to was you. It made
yeah.
sense to you. Yeah, and that's important. So, given your situation, what would be the top three things that you would like widows to know in those early stages of losing their loved one?
I want people to know that the pain that they are feeling is not going to be forever. Because when I was in it, and I say in it, you know what I mean? I mean, you're just
Yes, I do.
down in the depths of this horrible grief and you don't see a way out of it. You see no light. You see no hope that you are ever going to feel any differently than the way that you feel right now. And you feel like that pain is going to be forever. And it's I try to tell people, just have faith and know that it's not, that there is hope and that there is light still out there. There is lightness after the darkness. And it's hard to grasp that when you're so deep in the darkness.
Absolutely.
And so to those new widows, that's what I try to convey.
Yeah, that's good advice. Because you can't see a way forward. You can't make sense of it. You can't even think. It's just this. You're just thrust into this landscape that you just don't know. You don't know how to navigate it. You don't know where it's come from. Yeah, it's just a surreal experience, isn't it?
It's surreal. That is exactly it. It's surreal.
You watch life, people going on with their life around you, and then you go, how does that work?
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to stop. Life is supposed to stop because this happened to my husband, my daughter, my spouse, whoever. That's what
you
I
are in
felt.
a time. You are in this time warp. Really,
Yes.
Time is so tricky with grief. It really is.
So, what drew you to becoming this amazing advocate you are for other widows out there? Because you've got a beautiful platform that's really reaching a huge community. And there's an awful lot of people out there, it tells me, that are needing to find that hope, that light, that peace, that calm down the line. So when did you make that decision that that is what you needed to be doing?
So I first had this thought. I mean, I've been that widows group that I was telling you about. I've been very involved in that, and we were getting together still monthly. And I'm pretty late into the podcasting world, but I didn't really listen to podcasts until maybe 2017, 2018. And I think it was 2018 when I told some of my widow friends, and I said, we should start a podcast. And they were all excited about it. Yes, let's do it. It sounds great. And so everybody was excited, but nothing got done. And then I said, okay, like the next time we would get together, we should do the podcast. Let's do it. And again, but it's like, it's life, you know, everybody has little kids, everybody has their life and work, and there's just no time. But it was so hanging on my heart. It just would not go away. Just that tug, like, you gotta do this. Come on. You know, so I said, that's it. I'm doing it myself. So I just decided to do the podcast myself. I bought the equipment in 2019, and then I did not have the guts to start it and actually do it until 2020, when I finally recorded my first episode. And I went down the line of those widow friends that I was telling you about, and I interviewed them. And the whole concept and the whole mission behind the podcast was to put out these stories of hope because this is what I needed. If I was in a group, in the widows group, that first day that I went, I walk in and I see, here's a lady who's 2 years down the road. Like she's been a widow for 2 years. Look at her. She's smiling. She's laughing. How is that even possible? How did she get through this? Like, I want to know, what did she do?
Yeah.
That's the person I want to talk to. So I said, I'm going to interview these people. I have met so many people through the years, widows who have gone back to school. One of my dear close friends, her 2 girls were in high school. She went back to school. She is now a therapist. And then my other friend, she bought property and she designed and built her own home for her and her 2 boys. I mean, that is huge.
Wow.
A huge accomplishment. Yep. And I'm like, look at her go, like they are just living their lives and making something of it and doing these amazing things, like writing books, traveling the world on their own. And I just want to put these stories out there for those widows that are really struggling in that dark place, and they're thinking, I am never going to get out of this. I am never going to feel better. And so I needed to show those examples for those people that need to see it. And so that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing for 2.5 years now. And I love it. I love it.
And it's not the easiest job to be doing. Let's face it. I don't know about you, but I have to fit it in with a full-time job. Yeah. And so there is a lot of work that's actually involved in getting it, the interview set up right through to actually getting it out the other side as an episode that people can listen to. Yes.
Lots of things to learn. Lots of technical things that I didn't know before, and I had to teach myself, and it's been a challenge, but it's been so fulfilling at the same time. And the fact that I am reaching people around the world and hearing from people around the world who send me emails and say, thank you so much for this. This is really what's gotten me through the last 6 months. Some people, I mean, they don't have what I had with my widow girls. They don't have that. Yeah. They are really trying to do this on their own and trying to get through it on their own. And so even just to have my podcast to go to have another voice and to have something to go to help walk you down this path, that was part of my motivation too, is to get to those people that don't have any other support. So,
oh, you're doing a fantastic job. And, everything you were saying was obviously speaking to my heart, because those are the exact same reasons I do what I do. I wanted to share with people that there can be a beautiful outcome to your grief, that there can be a beautiful side. It doesn't have to be this darkness and this sadness, and that's very much a part of it. But there's these other sides too, and the stories, or the people you get to meet and interview, and what they share. It's just fills my heart each and every time, as you're doing with me speaking to you today. It's just like, wow, I love doing this. And people go, oh, you're still doing your podcast? I go, yep.
Yes. I told somebody, I said, it's like I make a new friend every week. I make a new best friend every week.
Yes.
I feel like that, really. It's pretty amazing, the connections that you can make and the new friendships. It's opened up this whole world to me that I didn't have before. Again, it's another light after the darkness,
Something somebody said to me just the other day, which I thought was really, really interesting, when I was explaining about doing my podcast, and that's what filled my heart up. And they were saying to me, because I happened to mention I really want to honor my daughter in her life. because she was and still is so incredibly special to me. It was actually a counselor, and she said to me, "So, are you doing your podcast for your daughter, or are you doing it for yourself?" And I went, and I didn't even have to hesitate with that, because although my daughter brought me to this point, I'm definitely every single day doing it for myself, because you have to have a passion to do this. You
Yeah.
can't go week in, week out without that passion. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about dating again, because that is something that terrifies so many people, widows, on so many levels, because they feel guilt. Am I not honoring my first husband or wife's or partner's memory when I'm wanting to be with somebody else? Let's chat about that if you can, Jen.
Oh, you nailed it though. That's the big one, is the guilt. Because so many
Yeah.
people feel like they are still married. They
No.
just feel like that's still their husband. And I mean, what I try to tell people, or I ask them, when you took your vows, you said, did you say till death do you part? Yes. A lot of times that's part of your vows. And then I say, okay, well then you fulfilled your vow. You did everything you promised you were going to do. You did it. You're not betraying anyone, because you are not lying. You're not taking your word back. You did it.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the aspects of dating again, is the guilt. Another one is just, what are other people going to think of me? That is huge.
Yes.
Because we feel like we're kind of in a spotlight and everybody's looking at us like, what is she going to do? What is she, they're curious, or they want you to stay in that widow box, or
Yeah.
and that influence can come from friends, and that can also come from your own children, depending on how old they are. Even adult children sometimes will try to have that influence and say, you are my mom and you are married to my dad, and that's how that should stay forever, And then of course the mom's going to feel guilty and say, okay, you're right, I'll just do that, and they want to honor their kids and listen to their kids. And so they stay in that widow box, and they stay where they don't really want to be. If they're thinking that they want to get into another relationship, a lot of times they don't
lonely.
listen. Yeah. So they want to take that step, but they're just highly influenced by the people around them. Sure. So it's tough.
And you have something great on your website, don't you? So you actually have a program that can help people who are in exactly this situation, help them navigate what they're feeling.
Yes, I put together a whole program about it. It's about dating after loss. And I cover so many topics in there, and topics about just putting yourself out there. How scary that is, You haven't been on a date in 20 years sometimes. It's a whole other world. So that itself is intimidating enough to just stop people in their tracks. Sometimes they're like, nope, I am not doing that.
Yep. I so get that. That was kind of describing me there for a moment. Oh, gosh. Yeah. So I'm pleased. And we probably haven't got time to get into it now about the Widow Squad and everything else at your offer. But what we will do is definitely have all the links to that so people can go and check it out, because what you ladies are doing and what you yourself are doing as a part of that, Jen, is pretty fabulous stuff that is obviously resonating with a lot of people. And, so I encourage anybody who's listening today to go and check that out. Before we finish up, though, I've got some questions that I always ask everybody. So the first one is, what is the best thing that has happened to you so far today?
Today, oh my gosh, I got to play with my little girls. It's Good Friday, so the kids are home from school,
Okay, yeah.
and I just spent 2.5 hours playing Play-Doh with my
Oh,
4-year-old.
oh, it's the simple pleasures in life, isn't it? I love Play-Doh.
It was so great. It was so great. I mean, again, being in that moment, just being in a moment and focusing on time with her. That's that's my new little one, actually. So, I got
Yes,
my
yes,
4-year-old now. Um,
yeah,
so that was a whole lot of fun. I just got through a day of Play-Doh.
yeah. That sounds beautiful. What are you most grateful for?
Oh my gosh. I am grateful for my super supportive now husband
Mm-hmm.
who came into my life unexpectedly, and it has been such an adventure. And he has been my best friend and companion through all of this. My new adventures in podcasting and the Widow Squad and all of that stuff. He is so supportive of everything that I'm doing. And I couldn't do it without my family's support either. So I'm
I
very
love
grateful
that.
to have an understanding spouse, you know?
Yes, yes. Well, can't think that why that wouldn't be so because you're so deserving of that. What's your go-to when you have moments in your day that are turning a little bit dark or not going as you plan? And we have a saying here: when they turn to custard.
Yeah.
What's your go-to?
Music.
Mm-hmm.
I turn to music, I would
Yeah.
say. It kind of brings me inward, and I can turn inward um and let my thoughts go with that support. I really like to listen to music too.
Oh, great. And that just takes you to a whole nother dimension, doesn't it? Music. It's
Yeah.
very, very powerful. Yeah. What would you like to leave our listeners with? What key takeaways? The floor is wide open, whatever you choose. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
I would like to leave them with one of the things that I tell people. It's a secret to getting through grief or a secret through getting through widowhood is that you can always, always go back to that love that you had with your person. And
Oh,
it's like this, it's always right there, like in your back pocket. You can take it
mm,
out, hold your hand over your heart, just sit with your eyes closed and go back to that love because it's still there. It doesn't go away. That will never, ever go away, no matter what changes in your life or how much time goes on or the circumstances surrounding you. Whatever moment you are in, just put your hand on your heart and go back to that memory and that love of them. And that is what got me through a lot of hard times too. But
gosh, that is
that love is always
such a
there.
magical and powerful takeaway there, Jen. I felt chills when you were saying that because do you know, when I think of gratitude and I try to be grateful and exercise that in every part of my life, and when I want to get into that whole sense of gratitude, all I do is just think of my beautiful Tal and her smile and how she made me feel, and I'm instantly lifted up there,
Yeah.
and then that just sets me up for everything else. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's the power of it, isn't it? That's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Jen, yeah, Jen, I have to say, what an absolute pleasure it has been connecting with you today to hear your powerful story. It is very, very powerful to go from where you were, that utter devastation of losing a husband where you were so newly into that, to finding how you could live life again with your wee girl, to discovering that on your own terms, and then to living it your fullest. And gosh, that is so encouraging to hear. And I am so grateful that you have shared that with our listeners today. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got some real value from this episode. Let me know how I'm doing, or if there's a topic you'd like covered, by clicking on the Healing to Be You Gmail link, or going to the Healing to Be You website. To get notified of new episodes, hit the subscribe button, and please share if you know of someone who could benefit from this episode. Until next time, be kind to you and take good care.